There is a kind of hunger that no amount of food will satisfy, a thirst no drink can quench. Many feel this silently, secretly, unsure if it's a flaw or a failure. It is not, it is a sign. This persistent inner longing, this quiet ache that nothing in the outer world seems to soothe, is not a weakness. It is a sacred signal from the depths of the soul. Those who are meant for more do not find peace in shallow waters. They may attempt to live as others do, filling their lives with obligations, distractions, or comforts. They may achieve what society calls success, earn the praise of peers, or meet every standard expected of them, and yet, in the quiet moments, when the noise fades and the masks slip, something stirs from beneath. A restlessness, a sense that none of it quite touches the center. This is not confusion, this is clarity breaking through the illusion. The soul, when it is meant for more, becomes unquiet in a life that is too small. It does not shrink to fit. Instead, it expands from within, disrupting routines, distorting certainty, even dismantling what once felt solid. This is not sabotage. It is the soul's rebellion against being ignored. The longing that arises is not for more things, more achievements, or more validation. It is for depth, for truth, for wholeness. And those things cannot be purchased, inherited, or borrowed. They must be uncovered, often painfully, from within. You may try to dismiss this longing, labeling it as ingratitude or emotional instability. But no amount of logic or discipline can silence the soul once it begins to speak. The longing will find you in your dreams, in your dissatisfaction, in the moments when you're alone and the world has nothing more to offer. You may look around and think, is this all there is? And in that question lies the first doorway to transformation. There is a lie that we are told, that to want more is to be greedy, that to seek more meaning is to be naive. But this more is not about ambition. It is about alignment. It is the difference between surviving and living, between repeating and awakening. When the soul knows it is meant for more, it refuses to be satisfied by surface pleasures or superficial roles. It begins to dismantle the identity built on fitting in, and urges you instead to become who you truly are. And yes, this longing can be painful. It pulls at the seams of your life. It stretches you beyond the comforts of the known. It may cost you approval, relationships, or the predictable path you once followed. But the ache itself is not the enemy. The ache is the invitation. It is the call to come home to the self. Not the self shaped by fear, but the self shaped by destiny. If you feel this longing, you are not lost. You are being summoned. You are being asked to go deeper than those around you may understand, to choose the inner world when the outer world fails to feed you, to live in truth, not in imitation. And it is a lonely road at times, because few will see what you are building within. But those who follow the longing come to see that the hunger was never for more from the world, but for more of themselves to be lived. This calling is not loud, but it is persistent. It does not always arrive with clarity, but it never leaves you alone. It is the quiet unrest that follows you through moments of silence. It is the intuition that something unseen is trying to break through the scene. It is the pull toward purpose when everything around you tells you to settle. Many try to drown this inner voice. They bury it beneath routine. They distract it with busyness. They numb it with pleasure. But no matter how far you run, the longing waits. It is patient. It is eternal. And when you are finally tired of pretending, it will still be there, ready to guide you inward. So if you find yourself aching for something more, something not yet named, something deeper than goals or gain, listen. Do not rush to fix it. Do not rush to explain it. Just listen. For in that longing lives the map back to your soul, and the soul that is meant for more cannot live a life that is less than true. Let the ache awaken you. There are souls who walk among us quietly carrying the weight of not belonging, not because they are broken, not because they have failed, but because they are meant for something that cannot be found in the ordinary. This sensation of disconnection, of watching the world as if from the outside, is not an error in your wiring. It is evidence that you were never meant to fit within the mold of what is common. When the soul is called to something greater, it cannot pretend to be content with what the world hands out by default. You may have tried, perhaps for years, to walk the straight line, to conform, to fulfill the expectations placed upon you by culture, family, or tradition. You may have worn the masks so well that even you forgot who lived behind them. But deep within, something never settled. There was always a slight misalignment, a quiet knowing that the life being lived wasn't yours, not fully. It begins early for many. You notice things others don't. You ask questions no one else is asking. You feel emotions with a depth that others dismiss. And somewhere along the way, you may have decided that this difference was a flaw. You may have tried to hide your intensity, your curiosity, your inner vision, to become palatable to a world that favors simplicity over depth. But the soul cannot be silenced forever. It waits, it watches, and eventually it begins to stir. You start to feel the friction between the roles you play and the truth you carry. What once seemed acceptable now feels unbearable. The routines you once followed now feel like cages. Even your own voice may begin to sound unfamiliar to you. This is not madness. This is the soul remembering itself. This is the unraveling of the false self, so that the true one can emerge. And yes, this process can be painful. To realize that the world you tried so hard to belong to was never built for your kind of depth, your kind of vision, your kind of soul. This is a grief that few understand. You may feel isolated, misunderstood, even invisible. But what you must understand is that your sense of not belonging is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is the soul carving a space where something new can be born, something that does not yet exist in the outer world, but lives clearly within you. Those who are meant for more often walk alone in the beginning, not because they are incapable of connection, but because their path has not yet been made visible. You are not following footsteps, you are creating them. You are not echoing voices, you are learning to speak with your own. And that journey demands solitude, stillness, and the courage to remain true when it would be easier to blend in. But there comes a moment, often quietly, when you stop trying to belong where you do not. You stop contorting yourself to earn a place at tables that starve your spirit. You begin, instead, to listen inward. And what you find there is not emptiness, but clarity. You begin to recognize that your sense of difference is not a wound to be healed, but a calling to be honored. The world does not always understand those who are meant for more. It is often built to maintain what is safe and familiar, not to nurture what is emerging and unknown. But the soul that carries a deeper purpose cannot be buried in normality. It will outgrow every disguise. It will break through every lie. It will disrupt the life you built in order to save the life you are meant to live. This dissonance, this sacred discomfort, is a sign. It tells you that your vision is expanding beyond what you've been told is possible. It means your values are becoming more aligned with truth than with approval. It means that the path you are called to walk cannot be copied, because it has never been walked in quite the way you will walk it. You must not measure your life by how well you fit into what already exists. You must measure it by how fully you live into what is uniquely yours to bring forth. The soul that is meant for more must learn to carry the tension of not belonging until it creates a place that feels like home, not just for itself, but for others who are searching too. If you feel that you don't belong, if the world seems too small for the truth inside you, do not despair. You are not alone. You are ahead. The road you walk may be narrow, but it leads to a life that is wide with meaning. And in time, your difference will not be your burden, it will be your offering. Honor the space between who the world told you to be and who you truly are. There are those who wake in the middle of the night, not from noise, but from a stirring within, a restlessness that cannot be named. It sits quietly beneath the surface of things, beneath the routines and accomplishments, beneath the conversations and smiles, whispering questions that no one around them seems to be asking. It's not depression, though at times it can feel heavy. It's not anxiety, though it often arrives with unease. It is something older, something deeper, the soul's refusal to remain untouched by the shallow pace of modern life. You see, when your soul is meant for more, it will not tolerate a life devoid of meaning. It will not be satisfied by comfort alone. You may find yourself surrounded by people yet still feel lonely. You may be engaged in work yet feel utterly disconnected from it. You may have every reason to feel content, and still that persistent discontent gnaws at you, asking for more. Not more of the world, but more of yourself. This kind of inner turmoil is not a mistake. It is not something to fix or push away. It is a sacred disturbance. The soul that carries a deeper purpose will not allow you to sleep through your own becoming. It will shake you, unsettle you, and even confuse you, not to harm you, but to awaken you to what you've forgotten. When you feel like you are unraveling, you are often just beginning to come alive. But this unraveling doesn't make sense to those around you, and so you doubt it. You question your own depth. You try to rationalize the ache. You seek distractions. You reach for validation. You try to fit yourself back into the life that once made sense. But what once was enough now feels hollow. What once gave you joy now feels like a performance. This is not regression, it is transformation. And it never begins neatly, it begins in the cracks, in the moments you feel like breaking down. It begins when the roles you play no longer hold your truth. Many who are meant for more endure a silent suffering before they find their path. They carry questions no one can answer. They wrestle with emotions too large to contain. They sense a greater design unfolding, even when everything around them feels chaotic. This inner chaos is not failure, it is fire. It is the burning away of what no longer serves you. It is your soul insisting that you cannot go on living a life that betrays your true nature. In a world that prizes certainty and clarity, this inner storm is easily misunderstood. We are taught to avoid discomfort, to seek resolution, to tidy our lives and keep things simple. But a soul destined for more will not be pacified by simplicity. It demands depth. It thrives in the complexity of paradox. It grows through pain that births insight, and doubt that births wisdom. You might not even realize what is happening to you at first. You only know that something feels off. You begin to ask, why am I not fulfilled, even though you have what others want? You wonder, what's wrong with me? Because no one around you seems to be feeling what you feel. But nothing is wrong with you. In fact, everything is finally starting to go right. You are beginning to awaken. You are beginning to remember that your life is not about performance, it is about embodiment. You are not here to be accepted, you are here to be whole. And wholeness does not come from achievement or perfection, it comes from integration. From facing the parts of yourself that you've pushed away, from listening to the voice inside that says, this is not the truth, from honoring the tension between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. The turmoil you feel is the friction between the life you've outgrown and the life you haven't yet stepped into, and it will persist until you answer the call. This call is not always clear. It doesn't arrive with a map. It shows up as discomfort, as disillusionment, as dissatisfaction with things that once brought you comfort. And while others may tell you to just be grateful, to just stay the course, to stop overthinking, you know deep down that this feeling isn't going away. That's because it isn't meant to. It is your inner compass reorienting you towards something more true. Trust it. Trust the unrest. Trust the pain that demands attention. It is not there to destroy you. It is there to guide you, to strip away the noise so you can finally hear your own voice, to remove the distractions so you can finally meet yourself. You are not being punished by your discomfort. You are being initiated into a deeper way of living. This is the cost of transformation. To let go of what is good enough in order to discover what is truly yours. To walk away from safety so that you might walk into meaning. To endure the loneliness of truth until it becomes the richness of alignment. The soul that is meant for more will always outgrow what no longer reflects its truth. There comes a moment when the soul begins to turn inward, not out of despair, but out of necessity. It has searched outward long enough. It has wandered through relationships, careers, achievements, failures, dreams that came true and dreams that broke apart. And in each, it found glimpses, fragments, tastes of something meaningful, but never the whole. So it begins to retreat from the noise, not to escape the world, but to hear itself more clearly. When you are meant for more, your healing cannot be completed solely in the external world. No recognition, no applause, no reassurance will truly satisfy. Because the longing you carry is not for anything outside of you, it is for the self that has been waiting to be seen, heard, and embraced within. And this kind of inner work demands solitude, not isolation, not rejection of others, but a conscious choosing to be with your own soul long enough that its voice no longer feels like a stranger's. It may start subtly. You might find yourself craving silence more than conversation, longing for nature more than gatherings. You might start to feel exhausted by superficiality, not because you are cold or aloof, but because something deeper in you is awakening and it no longer finds nourishment in what once passed for connection. You begin to feel the weight of every mask you've worn, the smile you forced, the roles you played, the persona you built to survive, and one by one they begin to fall away. This falling away is not easy. It is disorienting. You may begin to question everything, your choices, your relationships, even your own identity. But questioning is not a sign of collapse. It is a sign of life. The soul asks questions not to confuse you, but to realign you with what is real. And to know what is real, you must first let go of what is false. Many avoid this inner turning. They keep moving, keep talking, keep distracting themselves with the lives they've outgrown. But you who are meant for more, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer find comfort in repetition. You are being drawn inward because that is where your truth resides. And until you make contact with that truth, nothing outside of you will ever feel quite right. The healing that happens in this solitude is quiet, but it is profound. You begin to see the parts of yourself you abandoned to be accepted, the dreams you silenced because they didn't fit the world's expectations, the wounds you denied because you were taught to be strong. In this inward space, those fragments come forward, not to accuse you, but to be reclaimed. Every lost part of you is waiting, not with bitterness, but with hope. Hope that you will finally see that none of them were ever unworthy of love. You begin to understand that your pain wasn't weakness, it was the soul's language when it was not yet allowed to speak. You see how the patterns you repeated were not failures, but attempts to heal what was never met with understanding. You realize that your discomfort was not a defect, but a sacred tension guiding you back to wholeness. This kind of clarity does not come from books or advice or external wisdom. It comes from meeting yourself in the silence and choosing, moment by moment, not to turn away. And this choice is everything. To stay, to listen, to feel, even when it's uncomfortable. To forgive, even when you don't feel ready. To love, even the parts you were told were unlovable. This is the foundation of inner alignment. The willingness to be radically honest with yourself and to hold that honesty not with judgment, but with compassion. As you do this work, a shift occurs, not dramatic, but deep. You no longer react in the same way. You no longer need to prove or perform. You no longer seek your worth in others' eyes. You begin to walk with yourself in a new way, with reverence. You begin to understand that belonging was never about finding your place in the world. It was about coming home to yourself. From this place of inner connection, the outer world changes, not because it becomes easier, but because you are no longer fractured. You no longer abandon yourself to be loved. You no longer compromise your soul to be understood. You begin to create a life that reflects the truth you've uncovered. A life that is not perfect, but aligned, not flawless, but free. And though this path can feel lonely at times, it is never empty. Because in the space where others once filled your silence, you now meet your own soul. In the space where you once feared being misunderstood, you now speak with a voice that needs no approval. And in the place where you once sought direction, you now walk with a compass that cannot be taken from you. You begin to align your inner life with your outer choices. Peace is no longer fleeting. It becomes your foundation. Not because the world changes, but because you have. Because you finally remembered who you are beneath the noise. Only when you come home to yourself can the world begin to feel like home too. You begin to notice something subtle but unmistakable. Your definition of success starts to change. What once dazzled you, what once seemed worth chasing, the titles, the recognition, the applause, the comparisons, suddenly begins to lose its shine. You realize that the ladder you were climbing may not be leaning against the wall of your soul. And in that realization, a quiet but radical shift begins. When your soul is meant for more, you will inevitably reach a point where external validation no longer satisfies you. It may have once filled a void. It may have once helped you feel safe, seen, even proud. But now it feels hollow, as if you're eating food that looks nourishing but leaves you starving. This is not because you are broken or ungrateful. It is because your spirit is evolving. It is calling you beyond approval, beyond applause, beyond the illusion that your worth can be measured by how well you perform in someone else's idea of success. You start to ask different questions. Not, how can I win, but why am I here? Not, how do I impress them, but what speaks to me? This shift is not about giving up ambition. It is about redefining it. It is about reclaiming the right to define your life not by the standards of a world that profits from your insecurity, but by the quiet compass within that knows what truly matters to you. And yet, letting go of external definitions is not easy. We are conditioned from an early age to strive, to prove, to compare. We measure our value by outcomes, by numbers, by status. And so when this old system begins to fall apart, it can feel frightening. You may doubt yourself. You may fear being left behind. You may even mourn the life you once thought you wanted. But if you listen closely, beneath the fear is a deeper wisdom emerging. It's the part of you that knows peace is more valuable than prestige, that fulfillment is more nourishing than fame, that your life is too sacred to spend it climbing ladders that lead you away from your truth. This is the beginning of authenticity. You stop chasing what others call valuable and start choosing what feels aligned. You are no longer obsessed with being ahead. You are focused on being real. You stop rushing toward outcomes and begin honoring the process. You no longer need everyone to understand your path. You only need to know that it is yours. And with this, something beautiful happens. The anxiety that used to live in your chest begins to soften. The tension that ruled your days begins to release. Because you are no longer at war with yourself. You are no longer forcing your life into shapes that don't fit. You are no longer betraying your soul for the sake of acceptance. This is not a loud transformation. It is a quiet revolution of the heart, one that changes everything. You might begin to create differently. Not for attention, but for expression. You may begin to serve differently, not to be seen as important, but because it brings you alive. Your relationships shift. You are drawn to people who see the real you, not the image. You speak more honestly, more simply, more vulnerably. You stop pretending. You stop proving. You just begin to be. The irony is that when you no longer chase the world's definition of success, you often end up doing your most impactful work, because it comes from a place of integrity. It's no longer about impressing. It's about serving something true. People can feel the difference. They can feel when your actions come from alignment instead of ego. And even if fewer people applaud, the ones who do so because they see you, not your mask, not your performance, but you. There will still be moments of doubt, moments when the world's noise tempts you to measure your life by old metrics. That's normal. But now you have an inner reference point. You've tasted what it feels like to live in harmony with your soul. And once you've known that, you cannot unknow it. You cannot go back. You can only deepen your trust in the unfolding. This trust becomes your foundation. You learn to say no to what drains you, even if it looks good on paper. You learn to say yes to what nourishes you, even if no one else understands it. You begin to live from the inside out, and this inner realignment is the truest success there is. Because in the end, a life well lived is not the one that looked best from the outside. It is the one that felt true on the inside. It is the life where you could breathe fully, love deeply, speak honestly, and offer your gifts without pretending to be someone you're not. It is the life where you were free. And that freedom, that quiet, grounded freedom, is the real reward. There comes a point in your journey where you stop needing to fight yourself. You no longer feel torn between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. You no longer waste your energy resisting your own nature, your own truth, or the difficult experiences that shaped you. Instead, you begin to see them, all of them, as part of something necessary, something sacred. And when this shift happens, when you stop resisting and begin to accept, you are no longer in conflict with life. You are in flow with it. This is not the kind of flow that avoids pain. It is not the illusion of ease or the denial of suffering. It is something far deeper. It is the quiet strength that comes when you stop pushing against the river of your becoming and instead allow it to carry you, not passively, but consciously. You participate in it, you surrender to it, and in doing so, you finally begin to trust it. It doesn't mean you no longer feel fear. It means your fear no longer decides your path. It doesn't mean that doubt disappears. It means that doubt is no longer your master. You don't demand certainty from life the way you once did. You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You just know you're being guided. Even if you don't yet understand, that kind of trust only comes when the soul has been cracked open enough times to realize that survival was never the end goal. Wholeness was. When you are healing through integration, You stop seeing your past as a mistake. You no longer curse the wrong turns or the heartbreaks. You begin to honor them, because without them you wouldn't have been pushed inward. Without the disillusionment, you would still be chasing illusions. Without the fall, you would never have seen what you were standing on. It's not that the pain was beautiful. It's that something beautiful came from your willingness to face it. And the more you integrate, the more you see that life has always been trying to help you remember, even when it was painful, even when it broke you. There was something being revealed in every loss, every disappointment, every breakdown, not as punishment but as initiation. You were not being destroyed. You were being refined, brought back to your essential self, the self beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear, beneath the expectations that were never yours to carry. In this state of integration, you begin to experience peace, not as a fleeting emotion, but as a deeper orientation. It doesn't mean your life becomes quiet or still. It means your inner world no longer depends on outer circumstances to feel stable. The chaos may still happen around you, but it no longer takes you with it, because now you have roots. Now you have a center, and that center is not built on control, but on acceptance. You don't cling to things the way you once did. You don't grasp for certainty or demand outcomes. You allow people to leave if they must. You allow things to fall apart if they need to. Not because you don't care, but because you've learnt that clinging only creates more suffering. You know that what is truly meant for you does not need to be forced, and what no longer serves your soul must be allowed to go. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you wise. It makes you able to act from clarity rather than desperation. You become less reactive and more responsive. You listen more. You slow down. You speak when it's necessary, but you no longer speak just to fill the silence. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth, because you've already found it within. And perhaps the most profound sign of integration is this: you begin to live without pretense. You no longer need to pretend to be strong when you feel vulnerable. You no longer hide your sensitivity or shrink your truth. You show up as you are, not to impress, but to connect, not to be admired, but to be real. And in this honesty, others feel safe to be honest too. Your very presence becomes an invitation for others to come home to themselves. This is the quiet power of someone who is integrated. Not loud, not showy, but unmistakable. There is a groundedness, a gentleness, a clarity that cannot be faked, because it is the result of deep inner work. The kind of work no one sees, but everyone feels. You begin to realize that healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you've always been. And as you shed what was never truly yours, you begin to radiate the truth that was buried beneath it all. That your being is enough. That your path, however winding, is sacred. And that everything you've gone through was preparing you not for perfection, but for presence. Not for applause, but for alignment. Not to become someone else, but to return to yourself. And when you live from that place, you no longer have to chase your life. You simply walk with it. One breath, one step, one truth at a time. And now, nothing can take that away from you. If something within you stirred during this message, it's not by accident. It's your soul remembering who you truly are. Don't silence that voice. Don't turn away. Reflect on what called to you. Write it down, sit with it, and let it guide your next step. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded of their own deeper calling, because when one soul awakens, it gives others permission to do the same. Your journey matters, and the world needs what only you can bring. Start now. Thank you.